Surely the wrath of man shall praise thee, the remainder of wrath shalt thou restrain. Vow and pay to the Lord your God. Let all that be about him bring presents to him that ought to be feared. He shall cut off the spirit of princes. He is terrible to the kings of the earth. Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion. In Salem also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place in Zion.
All right, good morning. Welcome to Line by Line Bible Study. So my microphone's way up there. Well, today the streaming didn't go well at all, so this is going to be a pre-recorded study. We have adverse weather conditions, which I believe in the future will no longer be a problem because we will be upgrading to Starlink. I guess this is like a long ad. Of course, it'll be different if I get it and I'm like, it's terrible. Don't. I should get whatever. All right, so let's continue in Psalm 77. I don't want to comment about the inability of the streaming throughout the study again. That's the poor quality of the connection, because we'll just upload it. All right, Psalm 77:10. Well, let's read the whole psalm. A psalm of Asaph. I cried unto God with my voice, even unto God with my voice, and he gave ear unto me. In the day of my trouble I sought the Lord. My sore ran in the night, and ceased not. My soul refused to be comforted. I remembered God, and was troubled. I complained, and my spirit was overwhelmed. Selah. Thou holdest mine eyes waking. I am so troubled that I cannot speak. I have considered the days of old, the years of ancient times. I call to remembrance my song in the night. I commune with mine own heart, and my spirit made diligent search. Will the Lord cast off forever? Will he be favorable no more? Is his mercy clean gone forever? Doth his promise fail forevermore? Should have waited one more line, and then we could add a Selah, but I had to cough and then clear my throat. Hath God forgotten to be gracious? Hath he in anger shut up his tender mercies? Selah. And I said, this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. I will remember the works of the Lord. Surely I will remember thy wonders of old. I will meditate also of all thy work, and talk of thy doings. Thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary. Who is so great a God as our God? Thou art a God that doest wonders. Thou hast declared thy strength among the people. Thou hast with thine arm redeemed thy people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Selah. The waters saw thee, O God. The waters saw thee. They were afraid. The depths also were troubled. I paused there because I was remembering in the prayer of Habakkuk. There was a similar thing. We'll go into that. The clouds poured out water. The skies sent out a sound. Thine arrows also went abroad. The voice of thy thunder was in the heaven. The lightnings lightened the world. The earth trembled and shook. Thy way is in the sea, and thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Thou leddest thy people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So, instead of questioning and doubting and all that, he's saying, I'm just going to meditate on your mighty works of old. of the salvation that was already wrought. And we did discuss, I'm almost thinking as I read this, I'm like, I know we didn't go over each of these verses, but I'm like, did I really leave off at 10? Because I feel like we talked about so much of it. And I'm almost like, I wish before the study I had the study from yesterday open, because I just wanted to, I want to see if I left my microphone on as the song was playing at the end, and I couldn't tell. But because it was on when I came in, I was just curious. Not that I'm too worried about an open mic, let me tell you that. But anyways, so, but we were in verse 10, because I didn't really talk about this as my infirmity. I know I didn't talk about like, well, what's that mean in the language and stuff. So this is where we are. But the general idea is clear, you know. And as I read it the second time after having discussed it yesterday, you know, reading it again, it doesn't feel, it still feels like an abrupt ending. It does. But the sentiment is clear. You know, the power God can muster to save, and they did bring to save them. Let's go back to 10. This is my infirmity. I'm assuming that's going to mean something like weakness, right? Ooh. Hopefully I actually have internet. I do. What it is it's just terrible today. So I should start this looking up now. There we go. I know it's working good right now. Okay. So, I mean, it was connecting, but then it would just drop. I'm not going to talk about the dropping. Who cares? It's a Bible study, not a technical seminar on that. Verse 10. Infirmity. Hala. And I'm not going to overemphasize the part of it, but that's that letter. And now it's taking a while to load the definition. But the quick definition here is beseech. So we have a problem. We have a problem, Houston. We have a problem. We have a text here, and it does not. This is my infirmity. Yeah, and if it doesn't let me look up the definitions, I might have to just stop the study, go back, start over, bring all my paper studies down to finish this. Here we go. It's coming. All right, well, while we looked it up, let's look at the next clause while the computer tries to figure that out. And I said this is my infirmity, but I will remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. Okay. Yeah, if I don't have the right translation on that, I have trouble commenting. Kala, to be weak or sick. So maybe the quick definition was wrong, or maybe it's used differently. See, it looks like everything here says, oh, see, there was like, I have not asked the favor. 1 Samuel 13:12. I have not made supplication. So it's a word that is used in more, I will become weak. So to supplicate, to come, and it makes sense because you supplicate from a position of weakness. You come and you beg assistance or beg help. A supplicant comes on bended knee at least in a symbolic sense. Certainly they are, when you go begging, you have your hat in your hand, so to speak. You don't have to literally have a hat in your hand, but you don't literally have to be on your knee, but you're on your knees with hat in hand when you beg, at least symbolically. And that's what a supplicant is. And obviously you have to beg from a position of weakness, because the point of begging is to elicit sympathy, and sympathy is not going to be given to the strong. As far as not in that sense. Not when one comes as a supplicant, one must at least appear to be weak. Appear to be in need of assistance. Because then we'll say, then, well, why you don't need help. Why are you coming to me? I should come to you for help. You are the stronger, I am the weaker. So, I get it. That's how it's used in two different ways. Also to make sick. As being, of course, another form of weakness. A sick person is often weakened. I've a lot of, I'm sure you have a lot of times when you've been sick and you felt literally weak, like you couldn't perform normally. I remember the first time when I thought I had corona the first time. If it was indeed corona, it was sure a novel sickness I went through. But I remember there were a couple of days where I couldn't even sit at my desk. I had to go lay down on the bed. You know, like I didn't have sitting here. I'm like, oh, I just have to lay down. So that's that in weakness or supplication. Now that tells me that certain translations are going to be a little bit more. They're going to have maybe a different look at the way this goes. Is this my weakness, or or am I making supplication? That's what the definition said, beseech. When I looked at the quick definition, if you did the same thing, and I think that may be a sign of, where is it? Yeah, right? Oh, it's one more down. But like when I get the quick definition, it says, hala, and then the only thing it says is beseech. Like that's the whole sum of the word. Now here we have, then I thought, to this I will appeal. Oh, like he was saying, I'm going to make appeal to the time God stretched out his right hand to save God's people. When he led them. In fact, if you took verse 20 and just stuck it in after this verse, you know, you could, if you took out the actual description, verses 13 through 19, where the description is of God's ways and the things he does. I will remember the deeds of the Lord. Yes, I will remember your miracles of long ago, it says here in the NIV. You led your people like a flock by the hand of Moses and Aaron. So that to this I will appeal. I like, and that is correct. And like I said, it might be the wrong translation. Like the NIV people might be wrong, but it's still a right idea. And this thing I talk about, you can have two interpretations that are correct on a certain level, meaning they're correct in that they're good ideas, or they're correct that they're ideas. Because I can find all kinds of the scriptures where it says, I'll remind God, I'll appeal to God on the basis of his works of old. That's a reoccurring theme in the Old Testament and the Psalms. So that is not at all unusual. And that makes that is a very, pedestrian, vanilla interpretation. There's nothing like outlandish there. So the NIV, definitely nothing wrong with that. Could be wrong. It could be infirmity. This is my infirmity. I wonder if I didn't check like the New American Standard, because we can still understand it in terms of this is my weakness. Of course, this is my infirmity. This is the thing that's bringing me down. But so instead, contrary-wise, I will turn to the Lord and think on his deeds. Here in the New American Standard, they say, then I said, it is my grief that the right hand of the Most High has changed. It is my grief. This is my, and what do they say? On this basis, I will appeal to the Lord. Well, I can tell you for sure the NIV, what they're saying there is not a literal word-for-word translation, of course. This is more of a word-for-word. But it may be the thing that was meant by the psalmist Asaph. Because in some ways, it's a cleaner segue. It does make a cleaner transition. Because, I will appeal to the Lord, and but this is my weakness. I think more in terms of this is that, the weak are made strong. That is always the way of the Lord. This is my weakness, but I remember the years of the right hand of the Most High. Why do they have something different and weird with that? The years of I will remember the years. Did they say years too? The years. Okay, it's okay. So, I will remember the works of the Lord. I'm sure I remember the wonders of old. The wonders of Egypt, the things done, all thy work, the talk of thy doings. So he goes through all these things. He remembers. Notice the word remember occurs 3 times right here. I will remember the years of the right hand of the Lord. I will remember the works of the Lord. I will remember thy wonders of old. And then I will meditate and talk. And then he begins to do so. And so these are, this is the things that very often this is what is expected of us. We talk of the Lord's doings. It's part of what, he's delivered us. And he's given us a commission to go out and preach the gospel to every creature. And part of what gives the gospel teeth is what God has already done. Sorry, I'm going to have a stomach gas there. So, the things that he has done, not only that, they are also important things for us to learn lessons from. There is, like I said, there is a bridge too far where people do things and they seemed to be in the faith. Because I always reject the idea that they were ever truly saved. You don't lose your salvation. That's ridiculous. That would have to happen after the resurrection. Like, until you obtain your salvation, like, really, how can you lose it? Because, like I said, God's promise is as good as gold. And when God promises me he's going to save me, I consider myself saved. Okay? And that's how people talk. But you don't forget the fact that it still hasn't happened. I'm going to die. I'm going to be buried. Or not. They may leave me in the street or something like that. That's always a possibility. Or that we could live. I'd love to live to the last day. Probably. I'd probably prefer to live the last day and see the Lord appear in the clouds. Maybe it would be best, whatever. I don't know. I will serve the Lord in whatever capacity he would deem my meager powers. You don't need much power, but the Lord, how should one chase 1,000 and 2 put 10,000 to flight? So, of course, he can do just about anything he wants with little old me. So that's terrifying in a sense, because Moses was a very humble man, and he didn't really like the whole talking and stuff. That's why God had to make his brother Aaron part of it. All right, Aaron likes to talk. I'll get Aaron to talk. But I will make you to them a god, not to the people, but to Pharaoh. And Aaron shall be your prophet. I've considered, and it's funny because Paul and, was it Apollos or Paul and Silas or Barnabas? Was it Paul and Barnabas? They came into a town once, and they were supposed to be gods because of the healing a miracle that was done on the way in, and they supposed Paul, because he talked the most, to be Mercury, the messenger of the gods, because he was the one who was talking. Because whatever he was saying, I don't think was sinking in. They were just like, he's the one who's talking. He must be Mercury. I don't know what they're talking. They're saying something about the Jews or something. I don't know. Right. So, that reminds me of that. So wait. How did I go so back? Okay, there we go. I was like, these are verses we did. The song, I will remember my song in the night. My song, though, before it was my stuff, this thing, my works, my things. If I meditate on my works, especially if I'm thinking like, okay, how do I fit in the balance? And God's balances. Like if I had to take all my good works and all my evil deeds and put them in the scales, how would I come out? And I'm still way behind. And thank God that all the stuff that's on the bad side of the balance is taken out of the picture and out of the equation because of the blood of Christ, because of his work on the cross, and because of the fact that I heard the gospel and I believed it and I received the Lord as my Lord. But people don't, but like from outside, how, all kinds of people think I'm some sort of bad person. I have enemies. I tend to think not so many anymore, at least of the old ones. I'll have new enemies soon enough. You can bet on that. But, yeah, so whatever. The years of the right hand of the Most High. Remember the words of the Lord. Okay. Well, this keeps going down. I will meditate. Talk of thy doings. Thy way is in the sanctuary. Remember last time he went in the sanctuary was when he really kind of woke up. And then similarly in this is like the gods. It's funny. I remember in the NIV this verse that this says thy way is a holy way. It makes sense because that's what a sanctuary is. It's got the word sanctified kind of built into the sanctity. It's a sacred, holy place. Your way is in the sanctuary, though. Is not. I think I see why they but I don't think that is. Like, I think the NIV did a disservice there because, once again, they want to thought for thought give it to you. You know what I mean? Instead of word for word, and sometimes we've talked about. Sometimes that's. Well, it's certainly a useful thing they've done for us, and I appreciate it I appreciate their work as scholars. They went and they did what they thought were translating the thoughts, and that gives us an interesting. Okay, what are people who really know a lot about Hebrew or a particular group of people? It's like scholars don't all have the same agreement. That's not how scholarship works necessarily. I mean, they do on some things, but not on others. Especially ancient languages, it's going to be a bit of a. And there's always going to be sticking points, and there's going to be traditional kind of ways and questionable suggestions and things to consider. But they put out these things. That's why I like the multiple translations. That's one of the best things about English we have a lot of translations of the Bible. I don't know if other languages have as many as we do, but I've always thought that that's just kind of like there's like I know I've got at least 20 different translations of the Bible in my house. I don't even, I don't mean 20 Bibles. I mean 20 distinct translations. There's one that came out a couple years ago. Well, a couple decades ago, actually. God's Word. And it was a trademark. It was a modern translation for modern people. I never used that one. And it's not on Bible Hub because they were all copyright about it. They had their cool translation. They wanted to license it and stuff. Profit making endeavor. I bought a copy though. Catholic Bible, translated from the Vulgate. All kinds of stuff, and it's amazing. But I like thy way, O God, is in the sanctuary, because previously he had entered the sanctuary, and for him to bring it up again. And if I look at this. I'm just going to see if there's a quick definition if it just says... Because I have a hard time thinking they would just take the word holy and then translate it sanctuary. It must have been particular... And the quick definition that pops up is Godesh, apartness, sacredness. Oh, no, it's Kodesh. I mean, that's... But I think it is in the form that it occurs here. Or maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Kodesh, that's the word. I mean, because Kodesh is the word. I immediately recognize that. That's holy. It's translated holy. It's translated sanctuary 65 times. Most holy 25. Holy thing 2. Holy 263 times. So it's the word for holy, all right. But also sanctuary because that's the holy place. I think when it says thy way in the NIV, thy way is a holy way. And before I mean, did they have it? Let me see. Your ways, God, are holy, is what it says here. Verse to make sure you can see it. Your ways, God, are holy. That's the NIV. And I think that's a bit too... I get it. But isn't it being used in a sense that is... I was going to look in the... there is... I just know... I was like, okay, where's the... I guess you got to look at a different C Hebrew, Kadash. Because I noticed there's just no lexicon. Did they get it? Maybe they lost the ability to do the lexicon. No, let's see, it is. The Brown Driver Briggs is on the left here. It usually comes right after. Oh, there we go. Strong's Concordance, Brown Driver Briggs. Over here, nope. It just goes right from Strong's to NAS to Strong's, and that's it. No, apparently no Brown Driver Briggs for this one. That's too bad. Oh well. So I'm just gonna. We're not gonna labor that point anymore. I like that translation sanctuary there, even though it is the word for holy. I wanted to see if it was in a form that makes it, because it's one thing if the word takes a form that means holy place, and in another form it means like just general, like the idea of holiness or something. I don't know, because I don't know how they get. I know that one of the things about the lexicon, when you look at this on the left hand side, the Brown Driver Briggs, it's like the qual is like a form of the word. Well, where is it? Sorry. Qual perfect. That's that's saying a particular way it is formed, and then it means that's feminine, singular, whatever. So imperfect, whatever. Perfect, and then PL, and then whatever. Nifal, and this is all like the Hebrew language, like the form the word has taken. Of sickness of the mind. So depending on the form of the word, sometimes it changes the meaning. Like here, this word for weakness has quite an entry here in the. I mean, I'm just scrolling down. You can see it's like it's got a lot. They got a lot to say about that. The different forms. Like PL, perfect. What? PL followed by. It means to mollify. Like if it's followed by this other word, it means this. Here's this Roman numeral 2, verb only. So up here it's going to be somewhere they're going to say, okay, the verb. Follow perfectly. Can it be used as a noun? Because most verbs can be used as a noun. You can go for a run, or you can go run. You know what I mean? In one sense, I'm using it as an action word. The other one, I'm describing a thing. A thing one does that is an action, but is actually there, not an action, but a noun. And so that's one of the things that I always want to know. And it's good to have like some sort of I don't even really know how to use the Brown Driver Briggs properly, to tell you the truth, because I don't even know what those things mean. Maybe that's something you'd like to study in your time studying the Bible. It certainly would be useful. As far as if you really like to delve into the translation itself. As opposed to just, because like I said, it's like, is it a big deal? No. Who is so great a God as our God? That's the big deal. Thy way is in the sanctuary, in the holy place. Because that's where, meaning the ways of God are fit for the sanctuary. They are holy, it's a holy way. It is a separate and sacred thing. And he's meditating, because his ways are not, man's ways are not holy. We have sores and this, all these things that trouble us, about us. And we can make us think like, well, if I look at myself, I think, well, of course God's going to cast me off forever. Why wouldn't he? Why wouldn't he cast me off forever? I'm not thankful enough. I'm thankful, but I'm not thankful enough. I'm loyal, but I'm not loyal enough. I'm faithful, but maybe not faithful enough. Like I can think like that. I can think I'm strong, but not strong enough. I'm blah 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 blah. Blah enough. Whatever. I want to say I'm blah blah blah, but not blah 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 enough. Whatever. Fill in the blank with your own insecurities. And that is a pointless, useless endeavor. That itself is a sickness. If we go back to verse 10, like, this is my infirmity. What's really wrong with me is my crappy way of thinking. That I'm focusing on myself and because I did, and I'm telling you this from experience of my I know this acutely. I'm not like, I don't have any psychological training. I live this. I've lived this, so I recognize it in me. I'm like, oh yes, this stuff. Right. And so in response to that kind of thinking, this is what you do. You think on God and his salvation and how great works he works. And it always ends, and he always gets me every time on this. Because if I really start getting down on myself, like I'm like, yeah, and of course that's exactly why God will use me, because his strength is made perfect in weakness. So everything I could say against myself is just an argument for me in the end, because it's an argument not for me so much as for God, because God saves the unworthy and the unthankful, and all these people who don't deserve it get it anyways. Not that they're unthankful in response. But like I said, but in response, you may feel not thankful enough. You may feel not good enough, not righteous enough, not holy enough. You're not. And but I'm not going to add what most people add. Well, you never will be. No, you're not. But he has entered into your life to make you so. And it's a process of sanctification. That's thy way is sanctification. But the thing is, it's ultimately is the actual, because you're sanctified by the blood of Christ. It's the only thing that's going to work. But there is an external process that also happens. Your life is transformed by Christ's work inside of you. And so there are things that will change. But oftentimes people, there are people who, when they first become saved, they have an expectation, or maybe it's been told them to have an expectation that they won't sin anymore. They certainly shouldn't sin, because we're called away from sin. We're called to repentance. The whole call of the gospel is repent and believe in the name of the Lord Jesus for the washing away of your sins. So it's about sin. And so coming to God, like, with an honest heart about your sins, we have to be open to the idea of having them all stripped away. You know what I mean? And not only that we may be open to that for a moment, but you have to settle it in your heart, I think. It's more important, like, what I mean by that is, like, you don't just, on the day, oh yeah, I give up all my sins. It's like, no. Then you go back in life and you're tempted. And you have to learn daily to be like, no, it's holiness for me. And because the openness to that is not supposed to be a momentary thing. We open our hearts to God to honestly come to him, to have our sins washed away, and to enter into his kingdom. We've accepted this offer, but it means a lot. And it is a holy place. It is a holy calling. And that's why you often get troubled. Because you can be troubled by your own insecurities, But your salvation is of God. He is the one who does the work that saves you. Hath he cast off? No. You, like I said in all the other ones, that you can feel forsaken, you can feel cast off, but God does not cast you off. Not if you're still there. Not, like I said, the people who he casts off already know it. I would never apply that to any person who's conscientiously trying to serve the Lord. Well, it's raining something out there. I can just hear it, and you usually don't hear it in here. Yeah. The wind is howling. No wonder we're pre-recording this. Okay. So, you are a God that does wonders. You have declared thy strength among the people. Well, he's shown in the past, even the resurrection of Christ. And I look to my own past also, the salvation that he has wrought in my life. Look into the stories of the Old Testament. For some people are going to be comforting, but for other people, it may be like, well, that was so long ago. And a lot of it sounds fantastical. God parted the Red Sea, and he did wonders in Egypt, but yesterday he just let things go on as they have since the foundation of the world. A lot like what is said in Peter, since the fathers fell asleep, all things continue as they have since the foundation of the world. Everything's the same. There's no special, there's no God to take note of, they would say. We address that frequently, because it's like, there's a reason God hides in that sense. The reason he is hidden from people. There's a reason he hides wisdom from certain people. It's like, yeah, you're supposed to think he's not watching, so you can just do whatever's in your heart. And that's what you'll be judged on. I'll give you this precious, and what would you do with it? What would you do with one chance at life? You're already doing it. With your one chance, you're doing it. And so it's people don't take it seriously. Don't, in fact, that don't take it so serious. Well, you should, it's just religion. Religion is always serious. That's why when the ungodly get all serious about stuff, I start feeling like, it's religion now. Like the whole anti-racism thing. That's like a religion because it's not rationally. There's no because it's based on a lot of statements of faith and stuff. It's not based in reality, but not based on. Well, because for some reality in the sense it's not based on the material observations of just that kind of thing. And like I said, for some people, the Old Testament can seem unreal. It's not a lot of us believe it, right? But there's a lot that don't. In fact, the fantastical nature of certain of the stories. I've heard lots of people say oh yeah, when they read Jonah, they just were like, this had to be BS. And so the assumptions are BS. I mean, because I always figured, I like Bullinger's take on that is that Jonah died in the belly of the whale, actually. And he was raised from the dead when he was vomited out. Not just symbolically, but literally, because you don't live for 3 days in a fish underwater. And if you read the description that Jonah wrote, I was thinking of inserting right before John. Because it's just such a short book, and I thought that'd be a fun thing to quickly go through. And people, it's not one I normally think about, but I've thought about it for several years now. Well, I mean, I'm thinking about it for a while, but in the description there, it gives the impression of death, if not explicitly mentioning it. But there's parts you could point to, see. But the way it's described of being in the belly does not sound like he wasn't and there I found a ship and an old toy maker and we built a fire and the big fish sneezed and we got blown out on the ship in our raft or something on Pinocchio at Disney. It's not like that. The description is much more just like what you would think. Anyways, he does wonders and declares his strength among the people. People have seen, people saw it and they feared. People saw the works of God and they feared in that time. But that time is now gone. And so people say, well, what about our generation? And it's like, well, in our generation, I'll tell you what, he showed me some of his wonderful works. He showed me his strength. He declared it to me. And I only labor to declare it to others, to try to exhibit, to try to use the faith God has given me to do the works that he's given me, to do and we all have a role to play, of course, do all our, but I'm just modeling that in myself. That's what we want to do. We want to find out what it is God wants from us and then do it. But what I'm saying is that we kind of know what that is, generally speaking. It's like the people, I remember a guy gave me trouble because I said I didn't know God's will. It's like, yeah, I don't, but I do. Of course I know God's will. He has shown thee, O man, what is good and what the Lord requires of thee, but to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with thy God. And he would have that all men should be saved. And there's all kinds of things God wills. But what's his will like? In the more minutia detail of things that are mostly more concerning to me. Because God doesn't throw out prophecies for my personal life. That stuff I got to kind of figure out what God's will is for it, especially because some things are morally neutral. There's not a moral component where it's like, is it right or wrong? It's more of, is this the best move or the second best move? Or the worst move? Because I don't know. But when God reveals himself to men and has and will, and it happens again and again, and a lot of people don't understand because they don't seek God. And if you don't seek God, you won't find God. Because even though it is God who draws you, well, that's the thing, is that God draws you. And when you draw, I can tell God's drawing you because you start looking for him. People up and start looking for God out of nowhere, all of a sudden, and then they suddenly find God. And a lot of times people are shocked. Family members and say, they found God. Yeah, because he can be found, those by those who seek him. Those who he has called. You have with thine arm redeemed the people, the sons of Jacob and Joseph. Jacob and Joseph is an interesting choice because Joseph was the son of Jacob. But Joseph was the firstborn son. And I don't know, I was going to say it's kind of weird because sometimes I remember there are certain patterns where, like, when they're talking about Jacob, it has in mind, and Joseph is definitely Ephraim, but that's the prophets. Here, I think mostly it's because the tribes of Israel are made up of the sons of Jacob and the sons of Joseph. There is no tribe of Joseph. There's the tribe of Ephraim and Manasseh, which were the sons of Joseph. So, in that sense, there are two fathers of Israel, though one is a son. But Israel, as it is set out as 12 tribes, got 2 tribes out of Joseph because he got a double portion that he as firstborn. Because his intended wife was always Rachel. He always had intended to marry Rachel. Leah, he was kind of forced to take on as a wife. But he did his duty, and she bare children. But when Rachel, who was barren, finally bore, Jacob favored his son Joseph above the others, and they created resentment, and that's what led them to be in Egypt. But as Joseph said, what you intended, though you intended me harm, the Lord has worked it for good and to save us all, because he was in a position in Egypt to save their lives when the famine entered the land. This is something we should all be familiar with if you've ever read Genesis. And a lot of people have, because it's the first book of the Bible and it's highly readable. And a lot of times people, their reading of the Bible gets bogged down after Exodus, or usually in the last part of Exodus. Because I just remember as a kid trying to read through the Bible and getting through Exodus, or getting into Exodus, and then getting kind of like towards the end, the laws, I became disinterested because I didn't have a lot of experience from which to draw like, what is this? And that's another thing, is when I first started studying the Bible, the reason I couldn't understand it is because I didn't have any experiences with which to sort of compare, and I didn't have enough ideas in my head to truly understand things that were just outside of my experience. And even in the sense of experience of, like, I didn't even read of them, because there were so many things in the Bible that I hadn't gotten to when I first started, studying it when I was 18, 19. Right? Well, and I like I said, first started studying it, seriously at 18, 19. I had read it on a number of occasions and always taken it somewhat seriously. As far as, like, somewhere in the back of my mind, it's like I said, I was like, I consent, like, I thought I was on God's team all the time, because I was a Christian, and I was like, well, I believe, but but it's in so many ways, it's like so hard to tell. I remember being, pray and do, they try to encourage, my dad would try to encourage me. I want to say they, my parents, but it's not true. My dad, my mom never told me to pray. I remember one time she substitute prayed for my dad, and she did that "now I lay me down to sleep" thing, which is always weird. But whatever. Not that she did it in a weird way or anything. I'm not trying to throw her under the bus for that. No. But as far as, like, admonishing me or anything, like, that was not part of my upbringing from my mother's side. My father was the one who encouraged me to believe and to read my Bible. Or to, you should read it sometime. He didn't do it like, read your Bible. It was just, it was all very just, I could tell he was just concerned and didn't want to overdo it. Because that's what happens. Parents, in their zeal, overdo it to their kids. The churches, in their zeal, overdo it. And the kids get kind of religified. But there's a backlash that comes often from that kind of, from if we use religion, our religion, because any religion can be an instrument of repression, and Christianity often is used that way by people. Not properly using it, but using it like a hammer. Using it because you can use the Bible like a hammer in a lot of ways to hammer people, and many people do such things. And in I always thought it was funny that in order to, like the idea of the person who's like standing over the child with the rod and like you're going to hell, like that, how does that somehow, like we know that that's kind of a ridiculous. It's ridiculous to call that beating someone over the head with Christianity, because there's not really much Christianity in it, but it's done in the name of Christianity. It's done in the name of Christ. Because it's not particularly a Christian teaching that you should browbeat children with threats of hell. You know what I mean? Like I never. That's not. I can't think of one. Of course, we're all going to hell. We're all on our way. I mean, it doesn't seem. No, it's like, if I was beating my kid, I would be like, "You're going to heaven. Get your butt in gear. What? You got to get into heaven, so you better get your rear end in line. You're not going to hell. Not if I have anything to say about it. Where's my belt?" Because that's really what it's all. That's more of the truth. If I was going to cram my religion down my kid's throat, like, that's how I would talk. I wouldn't say you're going to hell. I'm like, no way you're going to hell. Not on my watch. And I don't raise my kids like that. But I think that's, if I was going to be a caricature of Christianity and go overboard and get a little bit too physical, that's what it should look like in my mind. Not like, you're going to get, it's like, that's some sort of person who already doesn't really get it. You know what I mean? Thou to God that doest wonders. Right. He redeemed them out of Egypt. So then the waters saw thee and were afraid. The depths also were troubled. This, like I said, this reminds me of Habakkuk chapter 3, I think. I'm not going to bring up full screen here. I forgot I have multiple translations on this Bible software, which is not showing up, so we're going to bring it full screen. Okay. Because, like, when God goes out to salvation, there's, like, similar language in other places. I just wanted to show you an example, just because this made me think. And I thought, I wonder if this psalm will shed light on Habakkuk or vice versa. That thou wouldest ride upon thy horses and chariots of salvation. That's right before that. Was thy wrath against the rivers? Was thy anger against this? Here we go. Was the Lord displeased against the rivers? Was thine anger against the rivers? Was thy wrath against the sea? That thou didst ride upon thy horses and thy chariots of salvation. Yeah, I like that. I always love that. Thou didst cleave the earth with rivers. The mountains saw thee in trembling. The overflowing of the water passed by. The deep uttered his voice and lifted up his hands on high. I have a song for this chapter. I think it's available on the website. Right? Let's see. I don't usually play it because I think I did maybe when we were studying Habakkuk. I don't know why I don't play it. Well, because I try to play the acoustic stuff because, I don't know. Because of reasons, I guess. Oh, yeah. So, oh, no, that's fine. Okay, that's right. Let's see. If I go to the songs page, well, I'll just let it load. Oh, there it goes. It's probably on near the bottom here. Early metal experiments, yes. The Chariots of Salvation. Habakkuk 3, there it is. It's at the bottom. Oh, it's actually, you can't even quite see it. It doesn't quite make it on the screen. It's right under the battle hymn of David and Goliath, actually. It's like the next one down just can't quite roll down. It won't scroll down. Oh, well, I'm not going to worry about that. It was not necessary to even show you that, but that's the music page. There's all kinds of free music there. All available on oraclesofgod.org, like I always put up there. You can download anything you like for free, and anything you don't like, you can delete on your own computer anyways, right? You just delete it and not listen to it ever again. So I say, if people don't like something I do, then don't listen to it. That's the best remedy I can think of. I don't listen to things I don't like. Well, sometimes I do, but I don't want to because I have to. You know, we can't turn our backs and not, you know, I mean, like when it says, "Oh Lord, you know, don't you see all the things that are going on? Don't you care about the things that?" Well, you know, we have to care too if we think He ought to care. If we think He ought to be angry about things going on in the world, we ought to be angry. We don't want to let anger control us and use us and manipulate us into behaving foolishly. You got to turn that anger into productive energy. It's all right to feel anger, but we shouldn't give place to wrath. You know, that means, you know, let the words be angry, but let us not become, you know, because wrath is swiftly followed by violence sometimes, you know, or it can be. It is the next thing. All right, and God doesn't call us to violence, but to peace. All right. So when it says here, the water saw that, it repeats it. I always like that kind of stuff. The waters saw thee, O God. The waters saw thee, they were afraid. The deeps also were troubled. Oh, what's God going to do? You know, the water, the personification of the sea and of the waters, you know, were you angry against the rivers? What was going on? And here also there's a sense of like that the waters are kind of scared of God because He come. The sea fears Him. As it says of Christ, what manner of man is this that the wind and the sea and the waves obey Him? The storm and the skies pour down rain, and thine arrows went abroad. Referring to lightning. Lightning is God's arrows. You know, I mean, that's not a... It's the way people have always thought. They see the power of nature. And it's not that He looks at nature and thinks, oh, that's God. Or every thunderstorm is God's wrath being poured out on nature because it rains on the just and the unjust. We understand rain to be a blessing. And they did too. But the point is that that the power observed, you know, God has command of such the most, you know, when we look at the power of a thunderstorm, God had the power to harness all that power and more, because God is more powerful than that. When man looks for powerful things, what are the most powerful forces man could look to? Now, we know about a lot of powerful things, you know, like black holes and giant stars and stuff, that to them we're not the full knowledge of, but to an ancient person looking at the sea and the power of the sea, the immenseness of the sea, the utter helplessness of man before the power and might of the sea, they then compare that to God. And of course, God is even more powerful. In fact, He commands such things. He commands the storm. He commands the sea. It's not that He's constantly, you know, like it says in Elijah, that like, you know, there was this great mighty wind and God wasn't in the wind. There was this great tumulting earthquake or whatever, and then God wasn't in the earthquake. And then He was in this still small voice. But the point is, there are a lot of things that we associate with God, but God is not of necessity in it. Like the howling outside, the winds and the rains, that there's powerful things going on in nature, blocking out the signal. But I don't think like, oh, God's wrathful against my Bible study, so He's preventing me from streaming it. I'm going to upload it later. If God wants to show me His wrath, He has many ways to do that. And I'm not going to, like I said, I'm not, it is good to learn by reading instead of by doing. And I've learned by doing, and I've spent enough nights on my pillow sleepless, as He describes, thinking similar thoughts about myself and my insecurities, to know that like that's not how I should spend my nights. So if I'm troubled, I need to think on the Lord. He commands the water. You know, He's powerful enough to save. That's the point. If He wants to save you, He will. Remember, you know, the children of Israel were not perfect. Even Moses had, you know, many times the Lord was angry with Moses because he wasn't always in line. He didn't always understand what God wanted in some senses, and so it ran up against his humanity. His own short-sightedness, his own lack of full clarity in understanding God. Because how could any man fully understand God in such a, God is revealing himself to us. We're just trying to take it in. The waters saw these powerful forces of nature fear God. That's the message. The waters saw you and trembled. And the waters are, part of, they have many applications prophetically and symbolically, waters. The people are waters. The dragon casts out of his mouth waters as a flood to swallow up the woman. Like I said, even when it describes the book, the end times, Jesus says, the sea and the waves roaring, men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth. There are powerful forces at work. But God, the message, you got to remember that even powerful forces like sin, that would engulf you. Remember when he said, the waters were nearly over my head. I'm sunk in a deep mire. There's also that kind of water, the waters of trouble, the waters of distress, the waters of being overwhelmed with things, even with your own sins. But all those waters, all those troubles, God can I was going to shape and mold and make into a force that works for him. And ultimately, that is the truth of how all things work together for good for those who love God, who are the called according to his purpose. Because, that's exactly right. Because even things like the wrath of the sea will come together and bring it, and it all will bow down and serve Christ. The voice of thy thunder was in the heaven. The lightnings lightened the world, and the earth trembled and shook. And it's a vision of this powerful nature. But he refers to it's like God's arrows. An arrow is not a big deal. You know what I mean? When God's thunder, but so we're talking about thunder, those are God's arrows. No, what it means is like, it's like, I remember there used to be this big tower we'd always pass on the way to go camping. And I was some sort of, I don't know what it was, radio station, I don't know, but it just had these big dishes up there that looked like these, those like bucket seats basically. And I used to call it God's chairs. Because there's this big, and so, when people see big things, like when there was, I remember an oil fire in Saudi Arabia, or no, back in Iraq during the, I forgot when it was. There was actually it was a documentary on oil fires and the people who put them out. I saw it like years ago. And I just remember they call it the well that was burning and had, blown its top and was just this flaming holocaust of hydrocarbons and ash and fire. They call it the devil's cigarette lighter. Because it's this plume of fire, hundreds and hundreds of feet into the sky. Maybe, but it was a big deal, the devil's cigarette lighter or something like that. And of course, it's funny. Because it's like, what you don't, though you could attribute it to God, but because it's a bad thing, they attribute it to Satan. And it's the devil's cigarette lighter. It's quite a big, nasty cigarette lighter. But again, the humor is comparing it to something small. So when they call lightning God's arrows, it's saying how much bigger God is. A bolt of lightning strike. I'd rather, what do you want to be shot by, an arrow or a bolt of lightning? And we're going to just hit you in the hand. I'll take the arrow in the hand over the bolt of lightning in the hand, I think. Though I'd prefer to avoid both. I don't know why I have such a morbid thought process when it comes to that. Thy way is in the sea, thy path in the great waters, and thy footsteps are not known. Well, the way of salvation, that's what he means. Thy way, the way that you bring your people to save them. Because the way he brought them, he led them by the right hand of Moses. He led them by his right hand through the sea. And that sea is that unsurmountable obstacle. You've got Pharaoh on one side, the ocean on the other. And Pharaoh's already been made to do God's will. He just doesn't, he regrets it and fumes and rages against God for making him do what he did not want to do, which was let the people go. His heart had been hardened. God hardened his heart, helping him do what he wanted to do. That's the thing that's really scary. Is like for the wicked, the things they want to do, the evil things they want to do, instead of the righteous, where God puts into my heart caution and fear and thoughts of faith to God and things that make me turn to him and from sin. But he does things for me that encourage me and help me in that way. Down to like the woman he brought into my life to be married to. All these things are all encouragements to righteousness. But for the wicked, he will not only give them the things they want, the wicked things they desire to do, but he'll allow things to encourage them. Not just allow, but I mean literally allow. Well, it says there will be hooks in the jaws of the people, causing them to err. There are all kinds of, the Lord sometimes puts hooks in people's jaws, the wicked, to make them do things they would not. They're mostly, because in a sense, at some point, all the evil deeds done, you don't really get a lot. God doesn't owe you any mercy at all, not even a little. He only considers it. Considers himself in that regard, as far as to the wicked, he's completely fair. I mean, he doesn't, like I say, he's not doing something to them against their will. It's like Satan. I used to wonder, well, why will he do, like if he was to be Antichrist, why would he do that knowing what God has already said and what God's plan is? He can't help himself. Of course he's going to do it. That's because that's who he is. He wants to do it. And given an opportunity, yeah, he's going to do it. Absolutely. Why do anything else? I mean, from that perspective, it's what they want. And the consequences, it's like, maybe I don't totally believe in the consequences. As far as that's the mentality. Or at least I'm not going to regard them. And I'm not going to fear the Lord. Surely he won't, because in some sense, maybe they don't believe him. No, he won't do that. You led your people like a flock. Your ways are known. That's how salvation happens. God leads us like a flock. He leads us with his, he ensures our safety. There are powerful forces at work. The way of salvation is in the sea, meaning we got to go through trouble. We got to go in, and it's when we reach the other side, when we go through all those troubles, the water on like a wall on one side, like a wall on the other. It's not much different when I talk about like walking on the sea. Same thing, walking over the trouble. The trouble out of my way. God, make a way in the sea or over it. I don't care, but let me pass over these troubled waters. And make them obey you. And bring them into your service. Let the lightning and the storm and all the clouds and all that serve you. Let it be thine arrows. And thereby I'll be saved. Remembering that God is the one who saves us, not my works. You know what I mean? As long as my relationship with God is in good faith and it's not something like I just do for other people to see. Like, don't convince me you're saved. I don't need convincing. Convince God. Convince God by just being real with him, I guess. I don't know. Because I've always been real with God, because I always thought, oh, God, how can you not be real with God? And anytime that I've gotten maybe tempted to be unreal with God, and at times been sincerely unreal with God, meaning, like poor me and crap like that, so I was sincerely wrong. Just like, God, why have you forsaken me? Okay, it's real. It's sincere. God isn't despising you for feeling that, but you're wrong. He hasn't forsaken you, and you completely need to learn better. But it's not wrong of you to feel that way. It's a normal part of the process of learning to trust God. You have to learn to trust God while you feel he's not there. It's like that thing where you fall backwards and let people catch you. We're all falling towards a grave that we are going to enter into, and we trust in the Lord that he's going to, dig us up again. Like I said, if you lose salvation, it would have to happen afterward, and that's absurd, because on those that the first resurrection, on them the second death has no power. You're already approved and ready at that. I believe so. Am I missing something? Anybody? No, right? I'm not missing anything. That's how it is. Okay, well, that's an hour and 5 minutes, and we're going to upload this study, and hopefully Monday we'll have better weather, and hopefully in a couple months, sometime we'll get this Starlink thing going, huh? I'm on a waiting list for the satellites, so, there we go, for the dish. Until then, not until then, but until next time, until Monday, unless I somehow pull out a video this weekend or something. I've wanted to do extra videos for a long time, but, I'm not promising anything because I only promise this, that we'll continue making studies and I'll continue uploading them. And if ever anything goes wrong on YouTube, like as far as I have one strike for, like I told you, and it doesn't go away. It's just a warning, but it is your next one's not a warning, and you lose your thing for this, and that's great, but it doesn't go away. It's just on there. They delete your video, and then so I can't go and delete it and remove the strike. It's a permanent strike. It's like one of those things you don't get forgiven for. They say it's just a warning, but it's like you only get one warning. And then what is it? The third strike or the second? The second one you get a penalty, but it's still kind of a warning. Because eventually I know they throw you off the platform. Well, you just look at Oracles. I respect YouTube for allowing me the streaming platform. So I do not talk about other platforms. I may have in the past, but I generally am not going to be like, check me out on this platform or whatever. I have oraclesofgod.org. If I ever change my studies, if I ever can't stream on YouTube anymore, wherever I'm going to be streaming will be, the information will be there. Because I've already looked into other services, and even if I have to pay a couple $100 a year for a reliable service, I will do that. Because that's still a very cheap ministry. That's still very cheap. And I'm going to be saving a bit of money with the new satellite, so that's good too. All right, so thanks for joining me. We'll be back again on Monday, Lord willing.
Surely the wrath of man shall praise thee, the remainder of wrath shalt thou restrain. Vow and pay to the Lord your God. Let all that be about him bring presents to him that ought to be feared. He shall cut off the spirit of princes. He is terrible to the kings of the earth. Also is his tabernacle and his dwelling place.
Yeah, the title card is wrong.
Salem